All right, next man.
To be a good photographer takes a lot of hard work and a lot of planning, and that's exactly what football took. You've got to be ready. You've got to know where you're going. You've got to know what you're going to take a picture of. You've got to know the time of day. And if you have any ability at all and you have that mental attitude, eventually you're going to do all the things it takes to be good at it.
In 1961, Bob Lilly became the first ever draft pick of the Dallas Cowboys. Among his many gifts were size, speed, and a camera from the Ed Sullivan Show.
Is this the actual camera that you got on the Ed Sullivan Show?
And this is the same camera. Went up to New York for the Coaches All-American team, sponsored by Eastman Kodak. And I got my first camera. Didn't have electric motor, but it had a wind-up motor, and you wound it up, and it would take about 12 shots, and click, click, click.
Lilly took thousands of pictures over the years, and because he was a player, not a member of the media, his photos are genuine and revealing. The best shots were compiled in a book, Bob Lilly Reflections.
Now, what did Coach Landry think when he saw you, walking around with a camera? Did that?
Well, I started doing that my first year, so they got used to me. Basically, it was candid shots of my teammates. Then it became I was a photographer for the children of the players. Many of my teammates, ex-teammates, come up and tell me if it weren't for me, they wouldn't have pictures of the kids.
Bob Lilly filled scrapbooks and highlight reels. Number 74 was considered the finest interior defensive lineman of his generation. He played 14 seasons, made 11 Pro Bowls, and never missed a regular season game.
He never gave up on a play, and that's what separates the guys that live in Canton and the guys that played this game. The ability to chase everything, every down, every 30 seconds.
I thought Bob Lilly was the greatest defensive lineman I ever saw. He had the most extraordinary balance. You couldn't cut him. You couldn't knock him down. He didn't trip over anybody. If Bob Lilly's feet were off the ground, it's because he was on top of the guy with the football.
Did you ever have any little drills that you would do that were sort of idiosyncratic that only you did?
I just thought about it one time, and I thought, I'm blinking my eyes. When the ball is snapped, I'm blinking, and you're losing that millisecond. So I used to sit in the practice, and I would actually I would touch my eyeball. I would obviously wash my hands. And I would do that for a while. All of them used to make fun of me. In fact, before it was all over, I had them doing it, though, because you get to where you don't blink.
With one eye on the ball carrier and the other behind the lens, Bob Lilly captured Cowboys history as he was making it. And every picture told a story.
There's Coach Landry.
There's Coach. We had this great admiration for him because his character was so impeccable. But he's like everybody else, had a weakness. He wasn't real friendly. And I don't know that you should be, but I asked him, I said, Coach, I said, the only thing I wish you to put your arm around me every once in a while. And he said, that was probably one of my weaknesses, Bob. He said, I just knew at some point I was going to have to tell you guys that I was going to trade you or fire you. And he said, I just hated to get too close to you because it hurts me too bad. So I think he was very tender. There was that stupid extra genie again. That's killed us.
What was that? Because everybody was sitting there straining with that. What?
The extra genie was just pulling against an almost immovable force. It was a rope that was hooked into a lot of pulleys. Hold it, George. Problem was we had no one to show us how to use it. We had 3 guys hurt their back. The very first week we had them. This is getting on the plane to go to the game, and we all, notice, have a coat and tie on. Of course, that's Meredith and Leroy Jordan, and Don said we're going to go kick their butt. Mm-hmm. That's what he was saying.
Well, he's got the other one here that I remember, the Easy Money, where he's like,
that's right there. Well, Don's a great guy. He played at a time when we were a sorry team, and he got killed. And then when we played Cleveland, I think it was in '68, we went up and lost the game. Meredith got out of the hospital with a broken rib, punctured lung, and pneumonia. Played in the game, and then came home and took a lot of abuse in the newspaper about his performance. He was courageous enough to get out of the hospital with pneumonia, punctured lung, spitting up blood, and then got blamed for it. And that's when he quit. That was before he had the Monday night job or anything. He quit and never came back.
Beginning in 1966, the Cowboys made the playoffs 5 straight years, including 3 championship games, but couldn't win it all. Their futility earned them the nickname next year's champs. In Super Bowl V, Lilly's frustration reached its peak.
Well, they beat us in the last 5 seconds, I think, and I just whipped my helmet off and tossed it down the field. I think it was about 58 yards. And a rookie from Baltimore brought my helmet back to me, and I don't recall his name, but he said, "Mr. Lilly, here's your helmet," and I felt about that big.
When they talk about the mentality of a defensive lineman, and they'll say, defensive linemen are supposed to be a real son of a supposed to be mean. If Bob Lilly ever had a mean streak, we said he'd have had 20 sacks a game. Then we said Bob Lilly was just too nice a guy.
Well, I don't know. Ernie used to tell me, Ernie Stoutner used to say, "Bob, just hit him in the head. Hit him in the head." So I went out, we played Washington. Ray Shonkey was the guard. I hit him in the head as hard as I could. Just broke his helmet in half in two, and it cut my hand all the way down through the arteries. And I thought, that's stupid. Why should I want to hit anybody in the head again? You don't have to be that mean. You just what you have to basically do is beat them. Just beat them.
In Super Bowl VI, that's exactly what he did. Next year had finally arrived. In the Cowboys' 24-3 win, the part-time photographer was responsible for the game's enduring image. It seemed to take Lilly years to catch Bob Greasy, and when he finally did, it was clear that the Cowboys' championship chase was about to end. Bob Lilly played 3 more seasons. He retired with many memories, but only one nightmare.
After my career, I had a reoccurring dream at least once a year that I was on the sideline with my uniform on, with gray hair sticking out from under my helmet. And Coach Landry said, "Come here, Bob, we got to have you." And I said, "Coach, look at them. Look at those guys. They're going to kill me." He said, "Oh, no, they're not going to kill you. You get on in there." And I'd start out on the field, and I'd wake up, and I'd have cold sweats.
He put on the pads one more time as the first member of the Cowboys' Ring of Honor, and was the first Cowboy inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Now, the man who once chased ball carriers captures stationary objects as a landscape photographer.
Steve, this is my little cubby hole, and this is where I do all my photography and delve into the world of art. This is a little picture taken out in New Mexico, and it was one of those chance pictures that sometimes you're lucky enough to get. Driving down the road, you see this absolutely stunning sunset. It was just absolutely brilliant. That's down in Louisiana, and we set our tripods up about 3:30, and I waited and waited and waited until about 5:30. The light came through these trees. These are giant oak trees. That's quite a place to see.
Like the old pro behind the lens, Bob Lilly's subjects are rugged and dignified. They have stood the test of time. As an athlete, he gave his body to the Cowboys. As a photographer, he pours his soul into his art.
I read once where Ansel Adams was talking about photography, and he said that every great landscape photographer, when he composes a scene, there's something of him in that scene. Mm-hmm. When you look at those sequoia trees, do you see something of yourself in those pictures?
Well, I saw the stature of those trees, and maybe that's why they appealed to me. They were big and strong and beautiful. They were rough, a little bit on the outside, the bark, kind of like football players.